Chapter 9 Double Trouble. Jackie was dead. SHOO-FLY never knew how she got home from the Fergusons. She walked unhappily through the barnyard. Jackie was dead. The pet crow would no longer light on her shoulder again. She no longer had a pet to feed and care for. Jackie was dead. She looked up and saw something strange. Skipper, Dat's driving horse, was hitched to the family buggy and tied to the rack. What did it mean? Was Dat going somewhere? Where would he be going at this time of the evening? The buggy had electric battery lamps, and they were lighted. The kitchen door opened, and Dat, was it Dat, came out. No, it was not Dat, it was Jonas, and he was all dressed up in his Sunday clothes again. Why was he always dressing up? Where are you going? SHOO-FLY asked. Jonas walked past her without answering. Who told you you could take Dat's horse and buggy? She asked. Jonas walked quickly to the buggy, jumped in, slapped the lines, and drove out the lane. He paid no attention to his little sister. Where are you going? Screamed SHOO-FLY, but no answer came back. Jonas was no longer a friend. Jonas would not talk to her any more. Did Dat say Jonas could take Skipper and go driving to town? A boy was supposed to wait till he was 16 and get a horse of his own to drive, and not use the family horse. Was he going to that tavern where Bill Ferguson took him before? All her worries about Jonas flooded her mind. SHOO-FLY rushed into the house, the dead crow forgotten now in this new crisis. Jonas is taking Skipper and going off somewhere, she cried. Stop him, stop him. The children were crowded around Dat, who sat in the tulip rocker and held his big book on his lap. All the faces looked up at her in astonishment. Don't worry about Jonas, said Ma'am. Jonas is all right. Come and sit down, Susie, said Dat. Pull up a chair. But did you tell him he could take Skipper and the buggy? Cried SHOO-FLY, looking at Dat. He went driving off down the road, lickety-split. Yes, said Dat quietly, I told you it's all right. They did not care. She could not tell them he was headed for Canada. She had promised Jonas to keep it a secret. She knew they would be sorry after he was gone. They were helping him to go by, letting him use the horse and buggy. Dat and Ma'am did not know he was going to run away and become English. How could she warn them? SHOO-FLY brought a low stool and sat down. Her heart stopped pounding as she listened to Dat's quiet words. Then she thought of the dead crow again, and the tears rolled down her cheeks. Don't you feel well, Susie? Asked Ma'am. I'm all right, said SHOO-FLY. I'm going to bed. She could not tell anybody about the dead crow. They would only laugh at her. They had all hated the crow and wanted to see the last of him. They would all be glad to know the mean old crow was gone. She had to hold her sorrow in her heart and bury it there. How could she ever be happy again? Ma'am sent all the children to bed early. Get a good night's sleep, she said. We'll have a busy day tomorrow. Burr, burr, the alarm clock kept ringing and ringing. SHOO-FLY woke and lifted her head sleepily. She felt as if she had not slept at all. She reached over and shook the twins. It was time to get up. Beck and Bib were already dressed and going downstairs. Today was Saturday. The family was going to strip tobacco. It was a long, drawn-out job that would last all winter. They would work all day on Saturdays and before and after supper on school weekdays. The big girls had breakfast ready at 5:30, while it was still dark and spooky outside and very cold. Dat ate hurriedly and went out to start the fire in the stripping room at the tobacco shed. The room had to be heated. The men had moved the dried tobacco down from the top of the barn to the damp cellar, where it hung until it became limp like rags. Then they brought it into the stripping room. Now it was ready for stripping, sizing, and baling. A big job. Every child had to help. We'll do the dishes, ma'am, said Beck. and let you go on out and start, said Bib. All right, said Mam, but Beck, go and call Jonas. He's an old sleepy head. No wonder up so late last night. Mam smiled as if she was happy about it. Then she added, let the little ones sleep. You girls come out as soon as you're done here. I'll take the milk buckets with me. She put on her warm coat and tied a kerchief around her head. She went into the kettle house, took the buckets on her arm, and stepped out on the porch. SHOO-FLY picked up a dish towel and a dish. Suddenly she heard a clatter of buckets and a heavy thump and commotion. What's that? Asked Bib, her hands deep in dishwater. It's Mam. SHOO-FLY ran out through the kettle house, towel and dish still in her hand. The walk was icy. All she could see in the darkness was Mam crawling on the walk, on her hands and knees. All she could hear was her mother's moaning. The buckets had flown through the air and landed in the yard. Call Dat, cried Mam, in a frightened voice. Call Dat. I'm dying. Call Dat. Bring him quick. SHOO-FLY had no time to think. She was terrified. Dropping dish and towel, she tried to move, but her feet were sticks of wood. Dat was in the stripping room, and the tobacco shed was clear across the barnyard. She stepped off the porch and fell into a tub that stood at the base of a frozen spouting. There was water in the tub, but she got herself out after scraping her arm against the porch post. She ran through the gate and ducked under the barbed wire fence. She kept on running, screaming at the top of her voice. She ran with vigor and with all the strength she could summon. The dog Pretzel at her heels. Oh, Dat, please come. Mam hurt herself and says she's dying. Dat, come quick. Mam's dying. Dat came rushing out of the darkness, alarmed by her cries. Where? He shouted. Where is she? Kettle house, answered SHOO-FLY. It was barely 6 a.m. and still dark. Dat came rushing along the icy walk, and not seeing the tub of water by the porch, went smack into it. He jumped out quickly and made for the door of the kettle house. SHOO-FLY crawled under the barbed wire fence on her way back, and was so excited she did not notice where she was going. Again she stumbled over the tub, and skinned her leg the second time. Where was Mam? She was not crawling on the sidewalk now, but Beck and Bib had helped her indoors, and she was lying on the kitchen couch. Her clothes were soaked, and the girls were taking them off. They had taken off her coat, and the kerchief from her head. "Och, my side," groaned Mam. "Aye, the terrible pain in my side. I'm dying. Dat came over and put a pillow under Mam's head. He knelt by the couch and tried to soothe her. He gave her some pills to take. After a while the pain lessened. Mam stopped moaning and smiled. "What happened, Rachel?" asked Dat. "I fell into that pesky tub of water," said Mam, smiling foolishly. "The walk was icy. I didn't see the tub, stumbled and fell right into it. The wooden handles hit me right here in my side, and gave me such a terrible pain. I thought I was dying. Is it better now?" asked Dat. Mam sat up on the couch. "Och, ja, so it is. It still hurts a little, but—" She looked at her husband, and her eyes grew big with astonishment. "Why, you're soaked too," she exclaimed. "Your pants are dripping water all over the floor. Look." It was true. Dat was standing in a puddle of water. "I fell in the tub too," he confessed, with a grin. "I was in such a hurry I didn't look where I was going." He looked and saw SHOO-FLY standing open-mouthed nearby. "Susie, why didn't you tell me Mam fell in the tub?" he asked. "Did Mam fall in?" cried SHOO-FLY. "I didn't know what had happened to her. I just saw her crawling on her hands and knees on the ice and heard her say she was dying." "Why do we have a tub of water sitting on the sidewalk?" growled Dat. "I put it there to catch the water from the spouting," said Mam. She glanced at SHOO-FLY. "Why, you're soaked too, Susie," she cried. They all looked at SHOO-FLY, Beck and Bib too. Now she was in for a good scolding, she supposed. "Look how wet you are," said Beck. "And no shoes or stockings," said Bib. "You went outside like that. No coat, and nothing on your head either," said Beck. SHOO-FLY was ashamed to admit it. "I didn't have time to think of putting on wraps," she went on in a very small voice. "I fell in the tub twice, going out and coming back. I was so excited and trying to hurry so, I never even saw it." The water was dripping in puddles from her skirt. "And you had no coat on, and your feet and head bare," said Ma'am. "I didn't have time," said SHOO-FLY. "I'll say she didn't," said Beck. "She ran like a streak of lightning," said Bib. They were not scolding. They spoke with real concern. SHOO-FLY raised her arm, pulled the sleeve back, and looked at it. It was all skinned and bruised. It began to sting. She lifted her skirt and looked at her bare leg. It was skinned and bruised. Her hurts were not funny, but everybody laughed. "What a bunch of ninnies we all are," shouted Dat. "3 of us all falling in the same tub." "A fine way to get an early start at stripping tobacco," cried Ma'am, getting up from the couch. "How is your side now?" asked Dat, with a worried look. "Do you think you should get up so soon?" "It was just a bump. The pain is all gone now," said Ma'am. "I guess I'm not going to die now after all. We'll get the tobacco stripped first. The Lord doesn't want me yet." She got up, put her arm around SHOO-FLY's shoulder, and spoke in a quiet voice. The one that got hurt the most said the least. "Come, girl, back to bed you go, and dry clothes for all of us." "Oh, ma'am," cried Beck, "I forgot to tell you in all the excitement. Jonas isn't home yet. His bed is empty." SHOO-FLY's face turned white. She began to shake all over. He was gone then. She should have warned them, even if it was a secret, and she had promised not to tell. She should have warned them, because she was the only one who knew he was going. Now it was too late. Jonas was gone. Dat said, "That boy not home yet, and it's 6:30 in the morning. He's making quite a night of it." Ma'am looked at Dat. "He ought to be home by now. He shouldn't stay till daylight. He's pretty young, not 16 yet." SHOO-FLY tried to say, "He's gone to Canada." He told me he was going, but the words would not come. All at once footsteps were heard outside. The next minute in came Jonas, with a sheepish look on his face. "What's this? Everybody waiting up for me," he said with a laugh. Ah, he had decided not to run away after all. Not yet, anyhow. SHOO-FLY was so glad to see him, she felt like hugging him. But she stayed where she was and said nothing. "What are you all standing around for, doing nothing?" cried Jonas. "Have you run out of work to do?" There was tension in the air, but Bib broke it. "We've been waiting up just for you," she said mischievously. "We wanted to check on you and see how long you stay when you go to call on your girlfriend. Pretty late hours for little Mary Esh, don't you think, Jonas?" teased Beck. "She's only 15. She's not used to being up all night. Didn't you run out of conversation? What did you talk about? The tobacco crop." "Och, now, you girls shut up," growled Jonas. "I left there at 12:30. Dat saw that Jonas was embarrassed. He tried to change the subject. After all, the boy had to start stepping out some time, and sooner the better. "Did you unhitch Skipper and put him back in his stall?" he asked. "Och, ja," said Jonas. "Sure I did. Fed him too." But Ma'am was not so easy. She wanted to know the whole story. "What took you so long to get home then?" she asked. Dat pricked up his ears and spoke too. "You didn't stop at a tavern, did you?" He went close to the boy and spoke sternly. "You haven't been drinking, have you?" "Och no," cried Jonas. "Don't get excited. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. A person can't keep anything to himself in a family like this. I was driving home and everything was nice and quiet, and Skipper was stepping along, eager to get back home. But up there in Honey Brook, I guess I turned the corner too short." "Did you wreck the buggy?" asked Dat sternly. "I thought you knew how to handle Skipper," said Mam anxiously. "Wait a minute," said Jonas. "All I hit was a stop sign, and I broke the shaft on one side, so I couldn't drive any farther. I had to take time to think things over. I didn't want to leave the buggy there out on the street, and I couldn't let Skipper go. So I had to figure out a way of getting both Skipper and the buggy home." Beck and Bib and Mam and Dat all began to smile. "What did you do?" asked Mam. "The only thing I could do," said Jonas. "I tied the horse to the back of the buggy and started to pull the buggy out of town." The others began to roar with laughter. SHOO-FLY laughed too. Jonas pulling the buggy with the horse behind, what a joke. Jonas had to laugh himself. "I was glad it was night so nobody could see me. Don't you folks go telling it all over the district, or I'll never hear the end of it." "What then?" asked Dat. "Go on with your story." "First, I thought I'd leave the buggy at an Amish farm along the way and ride Skipper home," said Jonas. "But when I got to the first one, Nathan Glick's, I knew it would only cause a lot of gossip, so I decided to go on to the next one. And when I got to the next one, I kept thinking about all the gossip and teasing, so I didn't leave it there either. I decided to go on home, so I pulled the horse and buggy the whole 5 miles. Now they laughed more than ever. The younger children got up and came running in. Then they had to tell Jonas about all the excitement of falling into the tub. They all laughed again. Mam said the pain in her side was completely gone now. "Whew, I'm tired," cried Jonas. "I left the buggy at the carriage shop, Dat. The right shaft will have to be replaced." Dat did not scold. He thought Jonas had handled a difficult situation pretty well. The boy was showing signs of growing up. "A late start to the stripping room," said Mam. "You go on to bed now, Jonas, and you too, Susie." But SHOO-FLY did not want to go. She said she was not sleepy. She put on her shoes and stockings and went out to the stripping room to help with the tobacco. The stripping room was nice and warm. Because there were so few windows, gas lanterns hung on the wall and gave a cheerful light. The whole family worked together at a long bench. Mam and Bib sorted out the leaves and began stripping them from the stalks. They had to hold the stem and pull the leaves by hand. Beck, Rags, SHOO-FLY, and the twins sorted the leaves for size and laid them in piles. Dat and Uncle Chris tied and bundled the leaves together in sheaves. Then they placed them in balling boxes, which would be bound and wrapped, then hauled to the warehouse in the spring. Tobacco was a dependable cash crop for the Amish farmers, but it meant long, hard work for all the family from one spring to the next to achieve it. They all chatted and talked and laughed. Sammy and Hayfork played on the floor, tumbling over each other like puppies. When the twins got tired, they stopped and played too, but SHOO-FLY kept on working. Everybody was there but Jonas, who was upstairs in bed, sleeping off his night's adventure. SHOO-FLY felt better about him now. He had only gone to see his girlfriend. It wasn't Lydia Zook, it was Mary Esch now. How many different girlfriends would he have before he settled down and got married? A boy was not supposed to pay evening calls until he had a courting buggy of his own. Strange that Dat let him take Skipper and the family buggy. But Dad must know best. At least Jonas had not started for Canada yet. What could she do to keep him from going? Beck and Bib began to sing their school songs, and pretty soon the others joined in. The work with the tobacco was monotonous, but not hard. Each person had to do the same thing over and over, so it made the day seem very long. In the afternoon, SHOO-FLY began to nod. She was tired, and her head ached. She began sniffling. She wished Gross Mama was home in her comfortable warm house. If only Gross Mama were at home, she could slip out quietly and run over to see her. She was homesick for Gross Mama, but Gross Mama was still at the hospital. She was making good progress now, but nobody had said when she would be coming home. A cold draft blew through the stripping room, and SHOO-FLY shivered. Ma'am had put some salve on her scraped arms and legs, but they still hurt. Her throat felt sore again. She had chilled herself when she fell in the tub in the morning. She began to cough. She wasn't over her cold yet, after all. Would the day never end? Jonas came in later to take Dat's place, while Dat went to the carriage shop. Jonas was refreshed after a long sleep and felt very lively. "What's all the hubbubaloo about?" he cried. "Och, we were just singing," said Beck. "We've sung all the songs we know," said Bib. "Have you tried Baby Bright Eyes?" asked Jonas. "No, sing it for us," said Beck. "Where did you learn it?" asked Bib. "Is that what you sing to Mary Esh?" asked Beck. Jonas picked up a bunch of tobacco leaves and hit her on the head with it. "It's the latest radio hit," he said. "They sing it in the movie by that name." "What do you know about movies?" asked Bib. "More than you think," cried Jonas. SHOO-FLY heard him and her heart sank. Had he been going to the movies too? Then Ma'am spoke up. "Enough of this foolish talk," she said sternly. "Remember now, we don't go to movies, have radio or television, but we do have fun." "Fun?" cried Jonas in a daring voice. "Is it fun to have work all day long? These kids came out here before daylight this morning. They've been working all day long, singing too, but working steadily without stopping. Look at them." The little boys and the twins were sitting curled up on the floor, tired and listless. "Look there, look at SHOO-FLY girl," cried Jonas. They all looked at her. She was huddled against the wall, half lying on the bench, her head resting on her arms, too tired to move. She opened her eyes and said, "I'm all right," then closed them again. "SHOO-FLY, little SHOO-FLY girl." Jonas went over and touched her forehead tenderly with his hand. "This girl's sick," he said. "She's got fever, she's burning up. She ought to be in bed. I'm going to put her there." The little ones got up and stood and stared. For once Ma'am said nothing. Jonas was acting like a man, like the man he would be some day. He picked SHOO-FLY up in his arms and carried her into the house. He took her upstairs and put her to bed. The work in the stripping room went on while he was gone. He came back and stopped for a moment at the door. He said tersely, "I'm going for the doctor." Chapter 10. Newfound Treasure. Jonas, Jonas, where was Jonas? He did not come when she called. SHOO-FLY turned over and tried to sleep, but she was too hot and began to cough. She threw the covers off. It was time to get breakfast. She had to comb her own hair, and it took a long time. She must not be late for school. Hayfork and Sammy had dirty faces. The twins were crying. She started to get up. Then she saw it. The sideboard was falling over, with all the glass dishes on it. The stove was jumping. The potted plants were falling down from the windowsill. Whose plants were they? Ma'am did not have geraniums in the house. Where did they come from? Where was she? She lay back on the pillows and had to cough again. Jonas was gone now. He never came when she called. SHOO-FLY was too late. Why didn't she tell Dat that he was going? No, it was Gross Mama who was gone. Why did she run away? How could they get along without Gross Mama? Jonas, Gross Mama. She tried to call, but she could not. Her voice was hoarse, and her throat hurt when she tried to talk. She coughed, and it hurt her chest. "Go away, Pumpkin, go away, Puddin'." The twins were jumping over her, and she could not sleep. Everybody made so much noise. How could she sleep? Oh, to find a good hidey-hole where she could be alone. Somebody piled chairs and rugs and heavy comforts on the bed. "Don't do that. Take them off." She could not turn over. She was burning up. "Jonas, don't go away and be English." "Jonas, come and help me." Gross-Mama was hurt. She fell out of the buggy. "I must go and help her, Jonas, Jonas." SHOO-FLY tried to get out of bed again. Gross-Mama, Gross-Mama, where are you?" Nobody came. They had all gone away. They had all gone away and left her alone. She rested on the pillows, her eyes closed. Then she felt a cool hand on her forehead. Her face was flushed and very hot. She felt a cool spoon on her lips. Then it was taken away. It was hard to swallow whatever it was. "Go to sleep now, Susanna," a kind voice said. It was a man. She roused again. Was it the mystery man from Massachusetts? No, it was a stranger. Was it Mr. Ferguson, who killed her crow? No, it was a stranger. She had never seen him before. An Englishman without a beard. He sat there by her bed. He held her wrist in his hand. He kept saying, "Try to sleep, Susanna." The big clock on the shelf was ticking noisily. Sometimes it struck the hour, but she could not remember what time it was. She dozed off to sleep, and the man went away. The next time she woke, Gross-Mama was there. Was it a dream, or was she really there? Quiet, little, brisk, little, gray-haired Gross-Mama, with her white prayer covering on her head. She brought both broth and tried to get SHOO-FLY to taste it. But SHOO-FLY was not hungry. Nothing tasted good. She asked for Jonas, but Gross-Mama shook her head. "You are too sick to see anybody," she said. SHOO-FLY looked around. She was not in her bedroom, not in the kitchen at home. "Where am I?" "You are at my house," said Gross-Mama. "We brought you here so I could take care of you." "Where is Aunt Susanna?" "Outside feeding the chickens." "But I thought you were in the hospital," said SHOO-FLY. "I'm well again," said Gross-Mama. "I've been home for 2 weeks. You've been sick a long time." After she began to feel better, they talked at length. "You caught the bad cold at corn husking time," said Gross-Mama. "It started with a runny nose and headache, and ended with a cough. You got better and went back to school, but that day when they started stripping tobacco you got worse. Jonas was the one who noticed that your cheeks were too pink and your eyes glazed with fever. He put you back to bed and went for the doctor, who said it was pneumonia. There was so much noise and confusion over at your house that I brought you here. Here you can have peace and quiet. Here I can take care of you. Your ma'am has her hands full, all the others half sick too." "But I thought you got hurt and broke your ribs," said SHOO-FLY. "Och, that was nothing," said Gross-Mama. "Only a little spill. God wasn't ready for me yet. He sent me to take care of you. But the buggy, I saw it smashed to bits," said SHOO-FLY. "Och, ja," said Gross-Mama, with a twinkle in her eye. "That old cheese crate will make good kindling wood. I'll soon have a better one. Rufus is making it already." She cackled with glee. Gross-Mama took life as it came. She was always ready for anything. "But Jonas, I want to see Jonas," said SHOO-FLY. "Jonas is not here now," said Gross-Mama. "I want to see him, I want to see him," said SHOO-FLY. "You have been calling him all the time you were sick and delirious," said Gross-Mama. "He came to see you, but you didn't know him. You were too sick to recognize him. You got all of us mixed up." "I want to see Jonas," said SHOO-FLY. "Jonas is away now." SHOO-FLY began to cry. "Why did you let him go away? Why did you let him?" "Try to sleep now," said Grossmama. "You've been talking too much. You are all tired out. The doctor said you need rest." She tried to get used to the fact that Jonas was gone. If only she had told Dat that he was going to Canada with Bill Ferguson, Dat would have stopped it. Days went by with Jonas gone. Then one day he appeared. SHOO-FLY was sitting up in her bed when he came to see her. "Hi, SHOO-FLY," he said. "Been shooing any flies lately?" She looked at him in astonishment. "They said you were gone." "I was," he said, "but I came back." "You went to Canada?" she asked. "Och no, of course not," said Jonas. "That was just a crazy idea. Did Bill go?" "No," said Jonas. "That was all just talk. We had to let off steam. We talked of 100 things we'd like to do. That don't mean we did them." "Where did you go then?" asked SHOO-FLY. "I had to go to Westchester to order new shafts and wheels for Dat. I went on the bus. Jeepers, it was wonderful. Dat says he's going to give me more responsibility and later on take me into partnership. I won't be a farmer but a carriage maker like Dat. But you said you hated being Amish and—" "Yes, well, there were some things about it that bothered me," said Jonas. "I'm sorry I worried you so. What do you think? As soon as Dat gets a new buggy made for Grossmama, he's going to build one for me, and every week now we go to the horse sale looking for a horse." SHOO-FLY smiled. "Grossmama says you'll want a pretty 3-year-old, a pacer." "Ja, that's what we're looking for." "Who's your girlfriend now, Jonas?" teased SHOO-FLY. "Is it still Mary Esch, or did you go back to Lydia Zook again? Are you letting your beard grow yet?" Jonas turned red in the face. "I'm not 16 yet," he said. After all, Jonas was still at home. He wouldn't go away until he was old enough to be married and settle down. SHOO-FLY breathed a sigh of relief. One day there would be a fine wedding. The Englishman who had sat by SHOO-FLY's bed turned out to be the doctor. Then another man came and sat by her bed too, a man who was not afraid of germs. He was the same old mystery man from Massachusetts. Why didn't he go back to Massachusetts and stay there? But she could not be mad at him this time. He brought her a bunch of red roses and 2 books to read. He brought the little ones coloring books and crayons. He stayed and talked all evening. He talked to Grossmama and Aunt Susanna, and to Dat and Mam, who came in for a while. Jonas was there and listened to every word. He told about his sons, who had wasted his money and wrecked the cars he gave them, and were always getting into trouble. He said his wife and children had left him, and now he had no family at all. He said he had nothing more to live for. That was why he had bought his riding horse with Dat's help and taken up horseback riding to forget his troubles. Jonas sat on the edge of his chair and listened to the man's words. SHOO-FLY watched him anxiously. Was this the world Jonas wanted to run off to? "I read about the plain people," the man said, "so I came to see them for myself. I am a different person when I come here. I wish I could begin my life all over again." "What do you like about the Amish?" asked Dat. "You plain people have got something," the man said, "something that makes the rest of us think. You've stayed close to the soil, close to God. Your self-denial, your resistance to temptation, your ability to get your living from the soil without the help of machinery, your love of good, hard work, your ideals, these things appeal to me. I come down here to leave all the worries of my business and my worldly affairs behind. I've traveled all over the country, and this is the only place where I'm able to find peace and contentment. That's why I come so often. I love the plain people and all that they stand for." Jonas listened open-mouthed. For the first time he realized his heritage and the value of it. Instead of bringing worldly temptation to the boy, the Massachusetts man had brought him satisfaction with his own way of life. His restlessness, an inevitable part of growing up, was gone now. He could be Amish wholeheartedly and follow in the ways of his fathers. A great peace came over him. After the men left, Jonas talked to SHOO-FLY again. That man told how his sons were so rich they had everything. I thought I wanted to be like them, then before I knew it, he turned around and showed me how lucky I am to be born Amish. So I guess I'll just stay that way. SHOO-FLY smiled. The old Jonas was back again. Every day now SHOO-FLY got up for a while. She took short walks, then went back to bed again. The doctor said she could return to school before long. The twins brought letters from all the school children, telling her to hurry up and get well. They brought her books, and she studied a while every day. Gradually she grew stronger. One day she went home and sat down to watch Ma'am at her sewing. Her own new dress was done now, and hanging on the wall. She would wear it the next time she went to meeting. A brisk knock at the door, and Miss Ferguson came bustling in, acting not like a neighbor but like a stranger. Her green car was out in the barnyard. The woman looked grim and angry. What could possibly be wrong? "Won't you sit down, Miss Ferguson?" asked Ma'am politely. "Try this chair." She pushed the tulip rocker forward. "My Grossmama Yotter gave me this chair when I married." "No, thank you," said Miss Ferguson coldly. "I don't want to sit. I can't stay long." "Why, Miss Ferguson," cried Ma'am, "what is the trouble? Can I help you?" Ma'am went toward her, but she held up her hand. "Don't come near me," she cried. "Why, what have I done?" asked Ma'am. "It's hard to say," said Miss Ferguson, "but I thought we might as well get to the bottom of it." "To the bottom of what?" cried Ma'am. Miss Ferguson talked fast. Her words came pouring out once she got started. "I guess we are just as good as you are," she said. "You needn't think you're so holy just because your men grow beards and you women wear little white caps and bonnets, and you get your chairs from your grandparents instead of buying new ones in the store. We go to church, and we listen to the preacher, and we believe in the Bible too. What's more, we try to do what's right, and even if we've got curtains and fancy clothes and television and automobiles, it doesn't mean we are wicked." Ma'am took a deep breath. "Nobody said you were, but some people act as if we are too fancy, and being plain is the only way to get to heaven." Miss Ferguson went on. "Our preacher said we're not committing any sin at all, and to just go on doing what we are taught is right." "Of course," said Ma'am, "you've got as good a right. We all live in America, and here we can worship according to the dictates of our own conscience. That's why the Amish came and are still here." But Miss Ferguson was not satisfied. She had other grievances. "You keep on calling us English, and we are as German, I mean American, as you are. My parents came from Germany, but we're not Dutch or Amish, just good Americans." "We don't mean you came from England," said Ma'am, "just that you speak English. We were so sorry to hear about Grandma Fisher's accident," Miss Ferguson continued, "but what could we do about it? And even if my husband did shoot the pet crow, that was an accident too. We never even knew Susanna had one for a pet, and we never dreamed she would get so sick." Miss Ferguson began to cry. The tears ran down her face. "It wasn't your fault," said Ma'am. "No one blamed you. We tried so hard to be friendly, but everything we did was wrong. And killing that crow was the last straw. Susanna was so fond of it. We wanted you to like us." The next minute the women were in each other's arms crying. "Oh, I wish we could be friends," said Miss Ferguson, sobbing. "The Bible says we should love our neighbors as ourselves," said Ma'am. "I haven't done my part, but from now on I will." SHOO-FLY had been looking on and listening. Now she could wait no longer. She ran to Miss Ferguson and put her arms around her. "Don't you cry about the crow, Miss Ferguson," she said. "You couldn't help it. Don't cry. I love you, and I love Betty, too. And Jonas returned Bill's radio a long time ago. He told me so." Miss Ferguson held her close and dried her eyes. "Oh, Susanna, to see you up and dressed. Now you'll soon be well again. Betsy missed you so at school, and she wants you to come over and stay all night soon, will you?" "SHOO-FLY promised to come. We'd like you to stay and eat with us, Miss Ferguson," said Ma'am. "Supper will be soon ready." "Call me Dolly," said Miss Ferguson. "And my name is Rachel," said Ma'am. "My family will think I'm lost, Rachel," said Miss Ferguson. "But I guess they can get along without me for once." Before she left, she said, "Sometime I want to learn how to make SHOO-FLY pie. I tried it once and it turned out terrible." "Susanna can show you how, Dolly," said Ma'am. "They call me SHOO-FLY Girl because I bake such good SHOO-FLY pies," said SHOO-FLY. One day, Jonas took SHOO-FLY for a walk. "I've got something to show you," he said. They wrapped up warmly because the day was cold. A light coating of snow covered the earth. "I saw a squirrel go into this hole in a tree down by the creek," Jonas went on. "I was curious to see how many nuts he had gathered for the winter, so I put my hand in, and what do you suppose I found?" "Tell me," said SHOO-FLY. "I'll show you instead," said Jonas. They went to the tree. Jonas boosted SHOO-FLY up so she could reach into the hole. She reached in and brought out one treasure after another. First Ma'am's lost scissors, and Beck's lost thimble, then a dried chicken bone and bits of broken china that the twins used for play dishes, a handful of caps from ginger ale bottles, clothespins, some brightly colored marbles and shiny stones, and last of all, the Super 40 chromatic harmonica. "I know," cried SHOO-FLY. "It was not a squirrel at all. It was Jackie, my pet crow. This was his hidey hole." "But the harmonica," began Jonas. "Och now, I hate to tell you," said SHOO-FLY, "but that night when you wouldn't take it, I was so disappointed I threw it away. I tried to throw it in the creek, so I would never see it again." "I was a beast," said Jonas, "to treat you like that. But Jackie found it and put it in this hidey hole," said SHOO-FLY, smiling. "Look, it's as good as new." "Crows love to hide shiny things," said Jonas. "Jackie tucked all these things away and left them for me, for keepsakes." SHOO-FLY gathered them up in her apron. Her old pet, the crow, had given her back his treasures. She felt better now over her loss. When they get back to the house, supper was ready. It was good to be able to come to the table and eat with the family again. They were waiting for her and Jonas. They slid in on their benches, bowed their heads, and prayed prayers of thanksgiving. The meal was good. Beck and Bib had cooked it all, while the twins had set the table. Goose filling and lima beans, red beet eggs, noodles and scalloped potatoes, chow-chow and pepper cabbage, applesauce and grape mush, cornstarch pudding and canned peaches, but no SHOO-FLY pie. That was saved for breakfast. After the cows were milked and the evening chores done, they all sat in the kitchen and talked. Cross Mama and Aunt Susanna came over. Cross Mama sat in the tulip rocker and held the twins on her lap. Aunt Susanna held Sammy until he fell asleep. SHOO-FLY spread all the crow's treasures out on the table. Everybody laughed when they saw what the naughty crow had hoarded. Jonas picked up the harmonica and began to play. First he played "Mary Had a Little Lamb," then "Coming Round the Mountain," while everybody sang. One happy song followed another. Then Ma'am asked for her turn and took the harmonica. She surprised everybody by playing "Home Sweet Home." After that it was foot-washing time, time for bed. Home was a good place, after all. Home was peace and love.